Hello everybody, welcome to Esports. It's back after a month and a half. A lot has happened. I'm not going to cover every event, and also the show is taking a bit of an update. It's only going to cover CSGO because my dear friends have left me. It's just me now. So looking at it, we're going to start off by just looking at the most recent event that happened, which was IEM Beijing. A little interesting thing about that, it was the first event to happen in China, and for Counter-Strike, it was the first major Counter-Strike event in I think 7 or 8 years to happen in China. So that's pretty crazy. So looking at the group stage, where we start off with the event, we had Group Stage A, which consisted of Astralis, Vici Gaming, 100 Thieves, and ENCE. So starting off with the opening matches, Astralis beat Vici Gaming 2-0. Not really surprising. Astralis is one of the best teams in the world. Vici Gaming is pretty unheard of, except in the Chinese scene. And then moving on to the next opening match, we had 100 Thieves, which was 100 Thieves just became a new CSGO roster. They were previously playing under the Renegades organization, and 100 Thieves just bought that entire roster. So now it went from Renegades to 100 Thieves. So 100 Thieves beat ENCE 2-0. Also, not really surprising, ENCE was really good 8 months ago, but recently they've kind of been taking a downturn, and this is a rematch from the Berlin Major, and the same result happened then. 100 Thieves beat ENCE 2-0 at that major. Kind of just happening again. So, and then moving on to the winners match, Astralis beat 100 Thieves 2-0 to move on to the playoffs. And then the losers match, ENCE beat Vici Gaming two maps to 1 to keep the playoff hopes alive. And then 100 Thieves ended up beating out ENCE 2-0. Again, not really surprising. 100 Thieves is a really good team. And 100 Thieves, I think they're a team that is super inconsistent, but they have the ability at any tournament they show up to, they have the ability to win that tournament. It really just depends on if their Opera Gratis faction gets off to a really good start, and if JKS is able to do his top fragging abilities. So from Group Stage A, we had Astralis moving on and 100 Thieves moving on into the playoffs. And then Group Stage B, we had Vitality, Tyloo, FaZe, and EG. This one pretty similar to the last one. There were 3 teams that are of like really high caliber, 3 top 10 teams, as we'll get to later. But Tyloo is once again just another pretty low-ranking team worldwide, but they're really big in the Chinese scene, which is why you see them here at the IEM Beijing event. So, starting off with the match 1, Vitality versus Tyloo. They take it 2 maps to 0. Not surprising. Vitality is another one of those teams that they have such high potential, but they're just really inconsistent. So, Vitality beating Tyloo 2-0. Moving on to the next match, we had FaZe versus EG. Now, FaZe recently had a bit of a change up in their roster. They were looking like another super team, similar to how they were a couple years ago. And it's starting to show. They beat EG 2-0. Not really. Well, that is really surprising, because Evil Geniuses was looked at to be one of the best teams in the world, and FaZe, who had been pretty unproven for about a year now, comes out and beating EG 2 maps to 0 maps. So that's pretty good. Moving on to the winners match, we had Vitality up against FaZe. Vitality ends up taking it 2 maps to 1. Once again, I think Vitality is a really good team. I think they're a top 3 team, but ZywOo is one of the best players in the world, and he's a player for Vitality. And I think that if ZywOo plays really well, Vitality can beat almost any team. And they showed it up against FaZe. Then moving on to the losers match, we had EG coming up against Tyloo. Once again, not really surprising to see EG win 2 maps to 0. Once again, Tyloo and Vici Gaming were the 2 honorary teams at the event. And like, that sounds really bad, but they are not world ranked at all. Tyloo, I want to say 6 months ago, was top ranked, but they're not anymore. they pretty much just got into the tournament because it was in Beijing, and so they were able to get in off of that home turf. neither of them. I mean, they're both good teams. Not to say that they aren't, but they are not the same caliber as the teams they were playing against. So both of them got knocked out in the group stage. Not really surprising. So then we had the decider match between FaZe and Evil Geniuses. FaZe ends up taking this one 2-1 again. They beat Evil Geniuses. FaZe really showing in this tournament that they have a lot of great potential moving into the future. So moving into the playoffs from Group Stage B, we had Vitality and FaZe. Probably the two, I think, best teams in that group. I think both of them deserve to move on from the group. So then we get into the playoffs. Boom. Playoff matches, your semifinals. We had Astralis up against FaZe and Vitality up against 100 Thieves. So, this was Astralis versus FaZe. Everyone thought this was going to be a really good match. And depending on who you're a fan of, it was a really good match. Astralis on map 1, which was Dust 2, beat FaZe 16-0. Don't see much of those up at top tier pro play. Pretty crazy that they beat them 16-0. Even towards the end of the match, the FaZe players were just laughing it off, because when you're down that much, it's really easy to get into a negative mindset. So it was good to see FaZe at least laughing off the fact that they were getting dominated. Map 2 on Nuke is one of Astralis's best maps. Their 3 best maps are Nuke, Vertigo, and Train. And pretty much any time you go up against Astralis on Nuke, you're going to be really hard pressed to win. And it showed Astralis winning 16-2. This is a tournament form of Astralis that we haven't seen in months. The last time they looked this good was the Berlin Major, and before that, 2018 was the last time they looked as dominant as they did at this tournament. So yeah, Astralis just send FaZe to the Shadow Realm in the semifinals. Not really what a lot of people expected to see. I mean, I thought Astralis would win. Did not think it would be that bad. I haven't seen a 16-0 in high caliber pro play in a very long time. So we have Astralis going into the grand final, and then moving on to our second semifinal, we had Vitality versus 100 Thieves. I thought Vitality was going to end up winning this. Spoiler, they did not. So map 1 looked really good for Vitality. They win 16-8. 100 Thieves just didn't really get anything going. And like I said before, 100 Thieves is really dependent on their Opera Gratis faction getting off to a good start. He was not very involved in the game on Mirage. But things swapped around on Nuke for 100 Thieves. They turned it around, and in a really close 14-16 scoreline, ended up beating Vitality. So they went to the 30th round, almost went to overtime. And in overtime, I would have favored Vitality because they are a more explosive, seasoned team. But 100 Thieves able to win that one. In map 3, Inferno was a slaughter. 100 Thieves taking it 16-2. Vitality just did not play well. Zaiwu cannot be the whole team, as he learned that match. Kind of sad. He's such a great young player, but his team a lot of times just isn't able to keep up with his fragging potential. So we have in the grand final, Astralis, one of the best teams in the world, up against 100 Thieves, who just underwent an organization change. They were really good under the Renegades organization, and they made it to a grand final with 100 Thieves, so it's obviously the player, not the organization. So, the final, I'm going to go ahead and give you the scoreline before we get into the individual maps. Astralis take it 3-0. It's a best of 5 series. This is a tournament, Astralis, that no one wants to play. They are just absolutely dominant. So map 1, the map pool we had really favored Astralis. Vertigo, Nuke, and Train. As I said earlier, the 3 best maps for Astralis. I do not know how 100 Thieves with the pick and ban let Astralis have these. These is the first 3 maps. That's a rough life for 100 Thieves, and it showed. Map 1, Vertigo, one of Astralis' best maps. The 100 Thieves took them to the 30th round. Astralis ended up winning 16-14. That's as good as it got for 100 Thieves. 14. They wouldn't even get 14 in their next 2 matches combined, so that was a little rough. Map 2 on Nuke. Astralis win 16-5. Yeah, that was... There's not much to say about that. Astralis just dominates teams on Nuke. I don't know why anyone lets that get through the ban. I don't remember what 100 Thieves banned, but it definitely should have been Nuke. And moving on to map 3, Train. Astralis' 3rd best map. They win at 16-3. I think by then 100 Thieves was just defeated. When you lose a really close one to start out and then you just get dominated, your morale has hit rock bottom. So yeah, Astralis ended up winning the tournament without dropping a map. So this sets the stage for the top 10 world rankings. So I'm going to go through what HLTV, the leading ranking site out there, has as the top 10 CSGO teams. I very much disagree with not only some of the teams they have in the top 10, but their arrangement, so you'll get to hear my top 10 after. So at the number 1 spot, they have Evil Geniuses. Number 2, they have Astralis. Number 3, they have Fnatic. Number 4, Team Liquid. Number 5, Vitality. Number 6, Avantgarde. Number 7, Ninjas in Pajamas. Number 8, 100 Thieves. Number 9, FaZe. And number 10, Furia. Had a lot of quarrels with that. I don't think that Furia deserves to be on there. Or Avantgarde. Avantgarde had a really good run at the Berlin Major, but since then, they've been a decent team. I just don't think good enough to qualify as top 10. I don't know who in their right mind is putting Furia in as a top 10 team. They're a really good team. I think they're top 20. But I do not believe that they should be able to even get the scent of top 10. So moving on to what I believe the rankings should be. We'll start out, we'll go backwards this time. We'll start at number 10. Number 10 I have is ENCE, and I do not think that ENCE will be in the top 10 much longer because they've been falling off recently, but I do think that ENCE has the potential at their next event to turn it around and maybe cement themselves as a top 10 team. And then number 9, I have Na'Vi. Honestly, about a month ago, I would have put Na'Vi at number 5, more than likely, but I just do not think that with the recent roster changes they've had, they can be that high anymore. I don't know how they don't make the top 10 in general on the main list, because Na'Vi is still a really good team. They have the best player in the world in Simple, but they're just not putting up the results, which I understand why they were left out of the top 10, but I just don't agree with some of the other teams in the top 10. So number 8, I have Evil Geniuses. Evil Geniuses had a really good run. Their breakout tournament, they won the entire tournament, but since then they've kind of fallen off. And CSGO is a really momentum-based esport. If you win a tournament and you immediately lose the next one, your team slowly starts to fall off, which in the case of Evil Geniuses is what you're seeing happen. They had a really good breakout tournament, and then when they played under the organization of NRG, they were really good. Then they won a tournament, and they've kind of just fallen off since then. So then we have number 7 is NIP. I think that NIP is a really good team. They're one of the CSGO old men out there, one of the ancestors of CSGO. But NIP has recently moved up to number 7. A few months ago, I would not have agreed that NIP was even top 20. But coming out, getting a semifinal at a S-tier tournament and continuing to put up good results, I think that NIP definitely is deserving of a number 7 ranking. The number 6, I have 100 Thieves. I almost put 100 Thieves higher, but they are just so inconsistent that I cannot justify moving them up at all. Like I said before, I think they have the possibility to show up to any tournament and win it, but they're just too inconsistent. Their players do not have the consistent fragging abilities that they need to always be a top contender. Number 5, I have FaZe. FaZe has looked really good in the tournaments they've played. They really only did not look that great up against Astralis in this last tournament, and with the way that Astralis was playing, I don't think that any team could have done anything to stop them. Astralis was really dominant, so that result, losing 16-0 and then 16-2, it was up against one of the best teams in the world, so that's, I mean, you can't really do much else. So number 4, I have Vitality. I think Vitality is in a similar boat to 100 Thieves, where they are an inconsistent team, but Vitality is just too good. When they win and when they play really well, they are such a good team. Zaiwu is probably the second best player in the world as an individual after Simple. He's one of the young guys coming up in the French scene looking really good, and is probably going to, whenever Simple decides to head out of the scene, I think Zaiwu will be the best player in the world. Number 3, I have Fnatic, and Fnatic kind of came out of nowhere about 2 months ago. Fnatic was a really good team in about 2013 to 2015. Fnatic was dominant, but they've fallen off a lot since then. But they've put together the 3 core players of their roster, and Crims, JW, and Brolin to really carry that team to where they are now. And so I think Fnatic is deserving of number 3. Number 2, I have Team Liquid. They haven't been doing that great lately, but they had such a dominant run at the beginning of 2019. All teams go through slumps. I think it's kind of unfair to just take Team Liquid down a lot. So I still believe that Team Liquid is a top 2 team in the world. Number 1, have Astralis. Anyone who argues that Astralis is not number 1 is just not looking at the facts. They've won the last 3 majors in the game. They just won the last tournament. They consistently put up quarterfinals and semifinals in the tournaments they lose. They always compete. They are always a competitor in every tournament. And when Astralis wins, it's never a really close tournament win. They're never, back and forth, really close to see who's going to win. When Astralis wins a tournament, they win it. They dominate. It's kind of like New England in the Super Bowl. You see them in there and you're like, oh, they're going to win, like they do most of the time. So yeah, that almost wraps it up. We've got one last thing to go through. Got the 2 main upcoming events in CSGO. We have the ESL Pro League Season 10, Round 2. So that'll be all the teams that either didn't move on to the finals or the teams that didn't get kicked out. So it's the middle of the road teams. Only 2 teams moved on from Round 1 of ESL Pro League Season 10. So those will be some good matches. And then the ECS Pro League Season 8 finals. I'm really looking forward to that event. There are a lot of really good teams showing up. And so yeah, you'll hear more about ECS Pro League Season 8 finals next week on the Esports Update.